So this board was established many, many years ago to um, provide some consistency in regulation across the state for building residential and commercial structures, entities, and such. The legislators decide the laws that are in place for all of that, and then the board's responsibility is then also to help create the rules that will guide a little more detailed. Laws a little vague, rules get a little more detailed. And so part of the board's responsibility is to establish those rules for requirements, experience, exam, level of exam and that kind of thing. The board also, so determining, are they qualified? Um, they also review complaints.
Do you feel the public is clear on who needs to be licensed?
No, I don't. I feel like the public, this is not their area of expertise. You know what I'm saying? Usually if you're going to hire a contractor, it may just be a one-off. You're just, having your house built. Maybe it's the only time you've ever built a house or an addition made or, different a commercial building, so a lot of times, especially for homeowners, this might be the first time they've really dealt with a contractor. So I, it's not something that most people just know. Um, we know it because we live and breathe it every day in the administrative world of licensing here. But I appreciate you doing this because hopefully it gives some information to the public on some things they can do to help protect themselves, verify, and just make sure that they're doing their due diligence as well. So one of the things that in the that was created in the statute for residential and commercial general contractors was the task to create a specialty or traditional work list. And those are things that in Georgia are not required to be licensed. So that is available on our website. It gets updated periodically, but it doesn't change very often. So that would be things such as swimming pools, roofing, installing a fence. Those kinds of things are not required to be licensed in Georgia. So there is a list and a resource out there for those folks to go look at and say, does what I want done require a state license to do it? Now, it could still require maybe a local permit to get it done or to perform that work. And that is something that they really, the person hiring these contractors need to look into.
When someone is doing work that does require a license and they don't have one, what happens?
So first and foremost, if there is someone who is, we call that unlicensed practice. And so if that is going on, first thing is we need to know about it. So that needs to be reported to us. And there is a mechanism for which people can submit complaints through our Secretary of State website. Our goals site makes that very easy to walk through that process of filing a complaint. And complaints can be filed for unlicensed and also for licensees if there's a problem through the new website that we have. So that information would come to us, and it is a process. Complaints can take a little time because of the process that is required, as we call that, due diligence, for our side to vet complaints and concerns.
So if you find that that is indeed the case, that someone was doing work that they were not licensed to do, what happens?
So first offer to those folks is generally offer them a cease and desist. Stop doing your work until you are properly licensed to do so. And often folks will be, they will say, I didn't know I had to have a license, and I will stop doing what I'm doing. I'll sign that C&D, and then they apply for a license to be properly, credentialed with the state. So we see that a lot. Again, not just the public that doesn't know, but sometimes contractors don't realize that what they're doing needs to be licensed. So
And if they don't
C&Ds is one area.
if they don't cease and desist?
There are other remedies, and again, that goes a little more into a legal side of it. But there is a provision for next steps for boards to take for unlicensed practice.
Does licensing also come with requirements for like having a bond or insurance?
Yes, yes.
Something that maybe if you're trying to work under the table, you don't want to pay for.
That very well could be. I mean, there's lots of reasons I think that that people we hear a lot. I've been doing this. This was my family business. You know, we've been doing it for years and years and years. Didn't know we needed a license, or I don't feel like I have to have a license. I'm like, yes, you do by law. You are required to be licensed if you are doing this scope of work. You know, if you're just doing fences, you don't need to be licensed, at least not in Georgia. But if you're building homes and there's a public health and safety factor, you probably need to be licensed with that. But we see often people are subcontractors, you know, maybe they do the specialty work, they only do the drywall. And so, but this qualifying agent is responsible for making sure that all of that other work that needs to be done is done properly as they are overseeing the project itself. So there can be subcontractors that help with those projects, but ultimately that licensed qualifying agent is responsible, or if it's just an individual, they are responsible for the outcome, the successful performance of anyone they bring in to work on that project for which they have pulled their permits for and they've signed contracts to complete. It is on that QA, what we call QA.
But the idea is that you are working with that qualifying agent on a specific project.
Right.
Not that you're kind of running off and doing your own business, but just claiming that license in order to say you're a licensed contractor.
Yeah, so someone can't work off of someone else's license. I mean, if I'm a qualifying agent and I am properly licensed, then someone else can't go and do work saying, oh, well, I'm tied to this person. No, I mean, you might do subcontracting work for them because they are overseeing, but you're not entitled to the permissions that their license gives you without them overseeing what you're doing. Do take the time to check people out. Go to the website. Are they licensed? Just because it says on their truck or whatever that they're licensed and insured, that could mean that they have a business license, not a professional state license that's required. If they're insured, maybe just their vehicle's insured. They don't have company insurance, general liability, you know. So verify, you know, we always say verify. It's easy to look somebody up on the on our goals website, search for a licensee, search for a company. And if there have been disciplinary action, it would show with their report that came up. But if there's nothing there, then that's great. They've been licensed. It'll show how long they've been licensed. Then also ask the contractor for a copy of their license or their license number. If you do that up front, most folks have no problems with that. Yes, my license number is this, or here's a copy of my state license card. If you get pushback on that, I might check it a little deeper and just see, you know, are you truly licensed? For handyman, we don't license, you know, so many of those things. Some of that stuff you can vet with maybe the Better Business Bureau. You can go on the corporation's website for Georgia and just see if they might have a company that's there. You know, so there's other ways to check those folks out using just, you know, some Google searches and reviews and things like that. One of the things that I would say that is so incredibly important is have a contract. Make sure you have everything in writing with the person that you are hiring to do your job. What is the scope of work they're going to do? What is the cost? If there's going to be extra cost potentially, how's that going to be handled? You know, make sure you get things in writing, because a lot of times when we see complaints come in, these folks have no contracts and it's not binding necessarily
Mhm.
without that. And so it's hard um, for the board members to say, well, what can we do here? So just folks need to just do their due diligence. People, they don't know, where else to complain. And so it comes to us, and we do have to let them know, I'm sorry, in Georgia, this is not something that has to be licensed. So your next steps might be seeking a civil remedy with that. Um, that is probably 60% of our complaints, I would say easily. Something that is not in our jurisdiction, or people who are requesting restitution financially. And
Mhm.
that is not something the board is charged to do. So we have to say, we can't help you recoup lost funds. Again, you may want to talk with an attorney about your best solution for that. So those are the bulk of our complaints. Um, Others include just somebody who's not happy. Something didn't go the way they wanted it to, but in essence, the builder was in compliance with everything they did.
Mhm.
And so if an investigative report comes back to the board and everything looks like, that it was solid, there was a contract, there was agreements, and they may just dismiss that complaint. So we do get those. That would, percentage wise, I can't tell you what the percentage would be, but that is a slice of the pie there with the complaints. Um, the complaints for unlicensed practice, we do have a lot of those, and we do take a look at them. And the board, will send an investigator out. Sorry, the board will send investigators or request investigators to go out and offer that C&D to those that are unlicensed practice and explain the policies that they need to be licensed in Georgia. The ones that are truly, truly egregious, that's probably 1% of what we see. But we cringe when it's the 1% that comes through like that, because those are tough. Those are
Mhm.
definitely tough to review, to hear the stories, and know that the board is going to have to dig deep and figure out what we can do with those.